Voting ends in less than 2 weeks to decide if California will recall Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom. Conservatives started pushing to oust Newsom last year. It was in response to his decision to shut down businesses and schools to contain the spread of COVID-19. The movement gained traction after Newsom was spotted maskless at an exclusive Napa Valley restaurant in defiance of guidelines he issued. But earlier this month, a CBS News poll found a majority of California voters do not believe Governor Newsom should be recalled. For more, I want to bring in Tom Waite and Sophia Bollag. Tom is a political reporter for our Los Angeles station, KCBS, and Sophia covers California politics and government for the Sacramento Bee. Welcome to you both. Tom, I want to start with you. Why is it so easy to recall a governor in California?
Well, this all started many decades ago with a very progressive governor in California that basically helped write into law a situation where you need a very small percentage relative to other states to, in fact, trigger a recall. So you need about, I believe it's 25% of the signatures or the actual votes in the previous election. Now, that is less than other states, relatively. So we have one of the easiest recall systems in place in California. And as some of your viewers might know, it's been used before, but it's only been used successfully once, and that was back in 2003, and that's when Gray Davis was successfully recalled, and of course Arnold Schwarzenegger was the winner of that recall election. So it's been attempted many times. It's only been successful one time. We'll see if that happens this time.
And Sophia, there are two questions that will be on the ballot next month. The first is a yes or no on whether Governor Newsom should be recalled. The second is where voters choose Newsom's replacement if he is recalled. So help us understand, why is the governor urging his supporters to skip the second question? Because presumably they would vote no on that first question.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The governor's campaign and the state Democratic Party are urging Democrats and people who support Newsom to just vote no and be done with it, completely skip the second question. And they're encouraging people to do that because I've talked to some political strategists about this, about why they think that's the strategy. And they really see that as, Newsom's best shot of beating this recall. They don't want to encourage voters to look at the other candidates for fear that they might find someone they like better than Newsom and then maybe switch their vote from being a no on the recall to a yes. Newsom and his campaign have gotten a lot of criticism for urging their supporters not to vote on that second question, not only from his Republican opponents, but also from some nonpartisan, like voting rights advocates that I've talked to, who worry that this is basically, Newsom encouraging his supporters to disenfranchise themselves on that second question, and that, a smaller sliver of the electorate could decide the next governor of California if that first question is successful and Newsom is recalled.
So, Tom, in the event that more than 50% of voters choose to recall Newsom, a hypothetical replacement candidate would not need a majority of voters to assume office. So who leads the pack and what are they running on?
Well, that's a really excellent point you're making, Elaine, because what happens in this recall election, before we talk about sort of who might be in the front-runner spot, to your point, if 49% of the electorate vote not to recall Newsom, but 50% do, plus one, then you have the recall of the governor, and then the replacement is the person who gets the most number of votes. Not a majority, but just the most number. So you could have someone theoretically winning the governor's position with 25% of the vote per se, something like that, something very small. And that 25% doesn't even represent, that's just the electorate. That doesn't even represent the entire population of the state. That's just who's voting, right? So you could end up with somebody who has just a small fraction of the votes in California becoming the governor for the next year, because it's only one more year. It would just be the end of Governor Newsom's term. Now, in terms of who the frontrunners are, the CBS News poll that we did just a few weeks ago showed that Larry Elder, a conservative radio talk show host here in Southern California, and it's syndicated, so I think a number of Californians up and down the state state have heard his show. He is in the front-runner spot, according to that poll. There is a Democrat, Kevin Paffrath, who is also polling pretty high. I believe he was in the double digits as well, at least in one of the polls. He is a YouTube success. He offers real estate and investment advice on YouTube. He says he's a millionaire, and he offers stock advice on this YouTube channel. He has millions and millions of views. So he's definitely derived a lot of success from his YouTube and stocks and real estate investments. So those are the two big front runners, and there's also the former mayor of San Diego, Kevin Faulconer, and Kevin Wiley. He is Kevin. He is also an assemblyman from Northern California in sort of those top spots. But it's very hard to predict this because even though we have polls, there's a lot of undecided voters out there. So it's unclear, kind of where this will all shake out. At this point, according to the Political Data Incorporated, it's a group that does data tracking. They're saying right now 18% of the electorate has voted in California. That's because just like during the presidential election, the Secretary of State sent out ballots, or I should say the county sent out ballots to all voters, again, kind of in the same situation as the pandemic voting, so that you don't have to go to a voting booth. You can still do that. They open them this Saturday here in California. But yeah, 18% so far. And according to that data tracker, 54% of the votes that have come in so far have been Democrats, 24% Republican, and 22% from others. So that could be independents. So it's unclear, where those votes land, obviously. Democrats outnumber Republicans in terms of registered voters 2-1 here. But we don't know. Who knows? I mean, it's very close according to the polls.
Yeah, it's really difficult to read the tea leaves on this, which is why we were talking to you, and we're thankful to both of you. So, Sophia, even if Governor Newsom wins this recall election next month, how could this still end up hurting his chances during the state's general gubernatorial election in 2022?
Yeah, experts I've talked to say that even a win for Newsom could be spun as a loss if he wins by only a very small margin, which polling right now suggests is a very likely outcome. And that's because California is a very deep blue state. Democrats here outnumber Republicans nearly 2-1. And so it would be a pretty dramatic outcome if Newsom, survives the recall, but only by a couple of percentage points. And then the other factor here is that even if Newsom isn't recalled, we will get, the results of that second question, and that could boost a potential challenger candidate who may run against Newsom in 2022. Unclear if that would hurt or help him, depending on who sort of gets a boost out of that second question. But certainly that could shake up the 2022 race as well.
Such complicated political calculus there in California. Tom Waite and Sophia Bollag, thank you both very much.